Not quite at this guy's worst fears. We've turned through things, some purchasing of loose stock, but then over here, dumping most of his AWA shares. Got him Sanuki Railroad's presidency. That's going to be the one over here. Very helpful to him. Okay, one of the good ones is gone. And then this guy didn't have quite enough. Given how weak this company looks, he was thinking about selling a share, perhaps putting the company up for risk, and seeing if he could start the other good one. He didn't have enough cash, but this guy obviously did, dumped all his stuff, picked up the presidency of that, setting it at 90. The other one was at 100. Big money, right? Some of the stuff that's been loosened is being picked up, and now this guy has one more railway. The thing I was thinking about is 1830 kind of falls out the same way. Quite often, you play it out and 7 of the railroads fall, and then there's one left, and it's almost invariably the Erie, unless somebody hooks it up with great plans. Sometimes it's another one, but often there's one extra railroad. Like everything shakes out in one big turn, and then whoever has priority in this turn gets the next railway if they want it, if they're set up for it. You know, like this guy just starting a company probably wouldn't be able to do it, so it would have gone to this guy if priority was here. But chances are priority's actually going to be here or here. And, you know, this guy certainly has enough holdings and will have made enough money that he'll have a good shot at starting a railway. Maybe not a great railway, though. Maybe he won't have a lot of cash on it, but he can probably buy a permanent train and get kind of, you know, the extra certificate, the extra share that you get on that double certificate is worth having the corporation, even if it's not the best producing corporation. Because eventually 2 companies can kind of jiggle their stuff around and maybe get something better out of it. And kind of a neat position here where a couple of people are holding 2 shares of the guy with priorities company. This is the end of the stock round, basically. They got to make their decision. Do they want to hold it or not? Now, this is the only company he's got. He's not going to get another one. The trains don't look too devastating. There's some danger. There definitely is some danger. 120 bucks could be pulled out of it. That's worth a little bit more than a share of the EO. And the guy could just dump, run it hard, dump, and become an investor, maybe buying another train. He can still buy a 4 train if that is available to him, if the 3 goes away before he runs, in which case he kills his 2 and then has a really good run for a little while in the mid-range game and then just dump. It won't be a devastating blow, though, if he does that to someone. It probably will hurt himself at least as much because of the extra certificate loss. Plus, the difference of 120 bucks for this and the 90 bucks that this par's at, you know, and the extra stock grab, which could actually sometimes be of great importance. Chances are it's not going to be here. We're going to see it. We're going to probably see it fall fairly soon. It has to be done between turns, though, so he can't do it, you know, like while the company's operating. Oh, I buy the last 4 train and the 5s are bad. Oh no, I want to do this. No, you got to wait until that company's completely done. So you may get caught off guard by that. So I think the people are going to hold it who have it. Now, most particularly, this guy is perfectly safe. Because if that guy dumps 50%, he's not. He's stuck with the presidency. So then, yeah. He's not perfectly safe. I was going to say, well, he's got priority on them, but no, he's going to drop 50%, be down to 10%, and then there's so much in the bank pool. Probably people will pick it up and somebody will get to dump, you know, one of these 2 will get to dump their share first, but we don't know which one. And that becomes a situation where both people are at risk. This guy's not safe either, just because 50% would get dumped. It's quite possible, but unlikely that this guy, this is the only guy who can do it, would buy a share. I'm sorry. This is the only guy who can save him. If either of these 2 buy a share, then this guy's screwed. And so he's not in a safe position either. The problem is what to buy. One of these new started companies, that's not terrible, but the feeling is that this is valuable enough to hold on to. In an 1830 game, it wouldn't feel that way because there'd be that 8th company out there. And yeah, it may not be the best company in the world, but it may be the only way to save a destroyed company. But there doesn't look like there's that kind of way, and there doesn't look like there's a tremendous reason for him to destroy this. So a slightly different flavor from the 1830 because that extra company's missing. In addition to, of course, the board situation, which is, you know, I got no idea what these companies are going to rack up in terms of earnings. It looks like it's going to be pretty tight on dots, so maybe the diesels won't be terribly good, but the companies don't have a lot of dots. It's just there's not a lot of board to cover. All right, so we're going to drop into the operating round, first operating round, and probably not going to see you till tonight because I just squeezed in what I could before I leave. So as we enter the operating round, my interview went well enough, by the way, but it you know, really showed the gaps in my knowledge now, some of which I didn't even realize had faded away so much on the network side. I got hopes, but who knows. The stock price on the pink guy here went up because it's the only thing that's sold out. Anything sold out will go up. And I've set up the new companies out here, some of which have big piles of money on them. And it feels like we're getting kind of towards the end stage of things. The trains are gonna start falling real hard, which may mean maybe it's worth. See, here's the problem. Is it worth buying this 3 train? Because it's gonna fall fast. You know that from any XX game. And the answer there is, yeah, it probably is. If you don't buy it and everyone else makes the same decision, you're all going back in price and nothing's happening. So unless you have another train to shift on, so this guy, for example, could buy the 3 train from here, but there's only 1 train there, so that's not a great idea. I think things are gonna really crash fast on this game, though. It feels that way. I didn't try to push the trains too hard, but it just feels like they're dropping hard. So we'll see what the rails do, but there's a lot of money in some of these companies. They're going to be able to buy a couple trains. So here's what I don't want to do, though. I don't want to buy a 3 and a 4. Because if I do that, I'll be setting someone up to be grabbing you know, the first 5 out of these new companies. This video editing, and I've mentioned this before, makes it so I don't want to stop it and talk a lot. It does make things a pain in the ass for me, but here I'm going to do it anyway. Green. They're probably not going to be able to ditch their private companies. We've got 3 new corporations out. That's these 3 trains. The third one is going to have enough money to buy the first 5. So these are going to go away. So now I have to make my decision. Do I want to dump these into my company? And I really have to think this out. So I buy this for 180. Let's say I end up with a 6 train. That's 700, 810 bucks. I have enough cash for that. And then here comes the questions also on track lays. I would love to lay the track here and get the dot here, but that will open up when the 5 train comes out, Takamatsu. And right now I have this ability here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop, let's see, 100, 200 bucks. What did I say I needed here? I said I was going to have 180, 700, 810 bucks. So I can't dump these for 200, but I can sell them to my corporation for 190. And that'll give me more money to invest in stocks without terribly hurting my company. Oh, no, I need a dot. Drop that to 150. So this one's 150. I'll sell the pair together for I'm going to say 100. Give me a little bit of extra operating cash. That extra 50 bucks probably isn't too important to me. Maybe 120 or something like that. But you don't want to be without money, particularly. Although in this game I'm not so sure it's a big deal because I am not going to have another corporation. And that amount of money isn't going to be enough to blast me through the mountains. So unless stuff gets in the open market, I'm going to be building my track where it's free. Alright, I just don't like cutting it that close because I'll probably make a calculation error. Now, what if I get stuck with the diesel? Well, if I get stuck with a diesel, my 3-train's not going to exist. I'm going to pay out of pocket, and it's not really going to hurt me that I took money from my company. So, it's that 810 I have to worry about. I'm counting on having to buy a 6-train. If I end up paying the diesel, there's a couple $100 out of pocket that I really didn't want to do. And of course, I changed my mind. This puny little company only had one spare token to play. So I want it here. Why? Yeah, I'm not sure. It sucks that I've got a token here, but I definitely want this one here because what I'm seeing is there's going to be a good city here, and there's going to probably be a good city somewhere on the other side of that track. I'm not going to be running multiple trains, or if I am, it's not going to be for long. So I want my token more centrally located. There is some danger to that, which is that right now this is the choke point, and I don't think that 58 track there upgrades those little towns. They do not. So I'm not going to be able to branch beyond this, which means this city will be outside my reach. But I am hoping that whatever's on the other side of this, which may be this city cutting through here, is eventually to my liking. Now what we're seeing here, which one is it? There's one company that allows you to blast through mountains, the Mine Railroad. It's not going to get to do much at all. It would have been really nice to get that in a company's hands early in the game, but it's going to get one track like at most, and probably not now, because this guy hasn't started yet. So it's never going to get its special ability. And we saw something very seldomly happens. Orange built their own track, set this up. They don't have enough money for a diesel after this, and it's beginning to look like, gee, buying these new companies, buying all these companies at once, maybe wasn't such a great idea. Maybe this wasn't the turn to do it. It usually is the turn to do it because this is, the turn that you get your permanent train, but the money's not quite there. This company only had $900 on board, so it just a little bit weaker, and it had to buy the 4-train for $300, a worse position for this. Now, in an 1830 game where you're really used to how the trains fall out, quite often you'll see players play with the stock and dump it to try to position themselves for the trains. I'm sure here you would have seen that too, because the guy sitting here is in a good position. But how do you dump your own stock? You can only drop it one space at most, because you can only hold 60%, and, well, if you drop below 50, somebody's going to take your company from you if you just started it. There's almost a guarantee of that. There were people floating around with enough money and interest in it. For example, this guy didn't want the company he had. He would love to have had one of the other companies as a start. So I bought the Ehime Railroad, which allowed me to upgrade this for free. I bought that for 20 bucks. You almost never see a minor private company go for less than face value. But in this case, I might be able to make enough capital that I can maybe buy the first diesel. Like in 1830, diesels, you get the discount of a 4-train or greater that you can apply to it. And that diesel's a lot of money. I don't think many companies are going to be able to do it. So I'm kind of hoping, well, I have the most money, I might be able to do it. So I don't want to spend much of that extra money, but I do need this track here for my train to allow me to upgrade this. And I made a little boot plug here because I don't particularly want big routes running through everything. I don't have a lot of dots to contest the board. Everything's kind of happening at once. This is a very condensed XX game, which my worry with it is there's not as much room to finesse things. At this point, I'm saying, wow, this really might give you that full XX experience in a condensed time span, but which 18AL and 18GA really don't do. But I'm not sure there's enough room to maneuver with the trains to feel things. Anyway, what I forgot was the 4s came out, all the 2s disappeared, of course, and that's here. But now we got the 5s come out, and I got to check the private companies, but I think all of them are destroyed. I think this is the only one that stays alive if it's in a player's hands. So in a lot of cases, oh geez, I forgot about this guy. Now, he would have done this at some point in this round, so I'm going to give him the share of EU. Obviously, you know, there are times when you just forget to do that, or when it's hard to judge, but he had an ample opportunity, you know. He knew that these 2 trains were going, so I'm going to exchange that rather than let that mistake stand. These all disappear. What about the ferry? The ferry, this has already used its port. Yeah, it's done. The mine, the M&E, these are all done. So yeah, all the private companies have closed at this point. And well, we're ready to get into the new companies, and here's the problem. One of them has no trains, and others have a strong desire if they can raise the capital. They weren't ready for this kind of quick fall of trains, though, I'll tell you that much. And the kind of skullduggery that having 2 companies means nothing I can do to really hose someone over. I could probably trash a company, but what I'm going to do instead is pay $1 and buy this 4 train off here. I'm going to leave the solid 5 there. The 4 gives me an advantage. Maybe I'll be the guy who gets to the 800 on the diesel. Upgraded this, running for $11 a share at this point. But very soon I'm going to be able to start expanding my route, running 2 big, decent-sized trains, and I'm just going to start swallowing like mad in hopes of getting to that diesel first. Maybe a terrible idea, you know, but this is what I got out of being able to be the first person with a 5. Well, out of getting one of those 5s. Other than that, I could afford it with the 4 and the 5. Now I got the 4 over here where it's actually useful. I do notice that this guy went out of turn. I'm going to see if it matters. It shouldn't. He may end up with a track lay if Brown decides to lay this track or something, but we'll see. Black, we're going to throw this back because he has no trains on his company. He was the guy with 2 trains. He laid this space, bought himself a dot. He doesn't have enough money for a train, but he must buy one. $340. This is not bad at all, by the way. $340 means he's going to owe $110 out of his personal money. Now, of course, he hasn't made any money, so he's going to have to sell a share for this. But he's going to get a 5 train on a company at a fairly low cost and then run for the rest of the game. So essentially, he took 1 swallow and a hit of a certificate of stock, which at this point is probably about the equivalent of a swallow. You know, now he's home free and good, which probably isn't much worse than a guy who just started a company if they ended up with a permanent train. They've got other problems, the ones who just started a company. Realizing this track lay for Ozu was illegal. This damn board is so muted that it's hard to tell where the hex tiles should be or not. Making a couple of mistakes here, and we're backing up on that. I was looking at Brown upgrading, and then I'm like, no, they have to do that. But I gotta replace that tile with something else, and I'll try to find something that works better that is legal and works for owners. So here in the error correction department, Brown ended up buying, I believe, the last of the 5 trains, and did the upgrade. And then this TOSA electric rail did an upgrade here, and I believe I just paid to drop a token there, a token here, to give me the run through so I have access through here. Alternatively, I could actually put it up here. It's hard to tell which token I want. Maybe I want neither. Maybe I want the 40 bucks. My problem is I'm going to be running hard and swallowing for a long time. And I'm worried Orange is going to get a token here, but I don't think they can get one down here. The Danger Dark Blue's not down here. Now someday someone's going to be able to cut this though. Who has tokens left? Pink and me. I don't think this is Pink's desire. I think their desire is more here. And mine's probably going to go somewhere in the north. So I'm pretty happy with my token way up here. The fact that I went after brown meant that I got a better run and an upgrade. I paid out a few bucks more. I know my runs are going to be pretty good very soon. How long I'm going to be able to keep those up though is a real question, and I don't know how much money I'm going to have, but I didn't want to just swallow all this period. This has been a long operating round in terms of me paying a lot of attention to what's happening, but there's a lot happening here. So we go to Pinko, who's running a 3-train, and everything's looking really, really piss poor for him, isn't it? He does not have a lot of money. So he's got to work real hard to get that 6-train because he does not want to buy a diesel on that company. First kind of playing out a game, I don't really think too much about the train strategy, but oh boy, this guy just fell into the perfect layout. He had the cash he had on hand. Now he was careful maybe to make sure he had this, but that $1,000 starting capital, the train's falling so fast, worked really well. He had just enough money to buy the 3-train and now a permanent 6-train, which of course kills all the 3s. And that means some of these people who thought they were going to be getting good runs are not. It also means this guy's out of a train and he's going to be digging deep into his pockets, probably for a diesel. But I can't be sure. It may well be just for the other 6. He hopes it's just for the 6 because he got a good run. He's got some money in his pocket. He's not going to lose too much off of it. But yeah, this managed to pump out a 15 run or something with his one little train. It's 3-train here, just running right here, and that's pretty sweet. Some upgrades taking place. And let's see, 80 to 75. We're going here, and then we go up here, and then we go back here, and then over here. Another tough call. EO here set himself up, ran his little 4-train, did a swallow. Decent money actually. This is very valuable. Again, the terrain is not familiar to me, so he made 120. Swallowed that. Now he's got his choices: diesel or 6-train. Diesel means he has to swallow again. He has 700 bucks in hand. 6-train means he has enough money to put another dot down somewhere. Both are going to mean the dot. I think the 6-train puts the cramp on other people who have real problems a little faster. That list of people being this guy with 2 companies, because it's going to crash his shot at well, this guy's not going to get the cheap diesel. We're pretty sure of that because he lost his train that would have helped him get there. Where does it put me though in contention with other people who've managed their railways well or lucked into it and ended up with, you know, a permanent train on it? I think it puts me okay. I think swallowing a second time is actually going to cost me more. So I'm going to buy that last 6-train, and that really puts the hammer down. This guy's going to have to buy a diesel out of pocket. This guy's going to have to buy a diesel out of pocket. That's 2 players that you have, you know, knocked out of the game completely. Now, if this was the beginning of the game and you could do that, that would be great. At this point, they might not be your competitors, although I'll tell you, this guy really is, if he were able, you know, to turn that diesel around with two corporations under his control, I think. Except this game is so accelerated that you may not have the time to make up the money on that. And that's kind of a worry here, is that diesels may just be something to fear in this game and never something to aim for. But this guy could do the diesel, and that would actually crash the 4 train right away. But it leaves this cheap 6 train out there for somebody, so they don't take as big a hit. So I'm doing more damage by buying the 6 train, and I really don't see this route ever becoming something that impressive. Yeah, I'm into babbling a lot right now. This guy just ran for 24 share, which is sort of a bell ringer right now. I don't know how high they're going to get. Nobody looks like they're set up for 2 permanent trains. Yeah. Who knows? Now that diesel's coming out soon. This guy had an option. He could have bought the train from here for $1 and juggled that company into, you know, just a dead feeder here. But if anybody wanted to, they could hook it up and force him to, you know, buy the train. So it's better just to suck up your fate and take it. I mean, there might be some opportunities to swap trains, but it doesn't look like it's ever going to happen, really. Okay, I screwed up with this guy. I'm not going to try to fix it, but his initial track lay facing this way was a bad choice. He really should have taken the little corner piece, getting him into those. He doesn't want to go down here. He's going to want to eventually, but right now he wants to get as much train running as possible, but does want to hit this, and he wants to hit these, and may never develop this southern stuff. So he's just really cutting into his profits there. He made a run of 8, I guess 9 a share, which is pretty crappy. He could have instead, if he had gone this way, been 20, 60, 70, 80, 12 a share. Yeah. A few bucks, but it makes a difference, you know, not a huge one, but there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember. Oh yeah, we got 22 a share on black. Not as big, but still, you know, running a nice little rail and improving his own token rather than, say, one of these that he thinks other people might do. He doesn't think anybody's going to improve where his token is, and he kind of wants to make that a valuable and important crossroads. He's going to start dragging track down into other areas. There aren't a lot of dots left. We'll see if people have the money and the will to use them. Get a bankruptcy here. I doubt it. It looks like he has enough stock to barely cover it, but he's going to be damn close. He owes $600 after he's pulled all his cash on hand and cash out of the treasury on that diesel. And if we quickly calculate up his value, Awa is worth only 70. Let's see what kind of money we have here. Uwajiwa is worth only 70. Wow, stock prices have really kind of tanked. EU is worth 75. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 certificates of this crap that we can sell. 4 times 5 is 20. So it looks like another 220. I don't think he can do it. Neat. I haven't had a game end in bankruptcy in a long time. This is a harsh game. They fall fast here. And it's hard to tell quite why. But somehow this instigated in me means of playing that I don't think I've seen before, where the trains came out just a little faster. Now, I think the problem maybe was this guy with his 3 trains. We'll see if he wins, because he forced everything out by buying 2 trains. But I've seen that happen in 1830. 1830 has a little bit more padding of trains, though. This one makes them fall a little harder. It's got a shorter portfolio of trains available, which is an interesting, harsh, quick little game, I think. Anyway, I'll come back in a little bit. So, some quick thoughts before I finish up. I'm currently spreadsheeting things out. I immediately thought I screwed up the ending completely, and here's why. Yeah, I got 2 shares of this left. Normally you can't sell the presidency, but look, there are people with 2 shares each. Unfortunately, I got the 50% in the stock pool. I'm still not going to be able to avoid this. This would have barely kept him in the game with like no money to buy anything, which would have been a really kind of lousy position. But hey, you could walk away from the table with no problem in an 18xx game if all you have is cash, if you have no company left. So that's not a terrible factor. What is kind of a bad situation in 18xx is when somebody near bankrupts has their 2 shares, their presidency, maybe a couple other things, and then, you know, they've got to make decisions for their company. If they ever get into a position where they can sell their company, they probably will, and it's probably good so they could leave. But as long as they do have a presidency, it may be very difficult to do so. And then you have players who kind of, you know, are in that position and they're kind of, well, can I just leave by ditching the company and giving somebody a bonus? Or do I want to crash the game? Is there something I can do to finish the game off? You know, sell my train to somebody else's company so that I can't survive the next round. I could see people making those kind of decisions as well if a group wanted to force them to stay in the game and not sell off their certificates. You know, just... There's no reason they can't, except what they do is they not buy the 2 shares. As a group, they'd agree not to let him leave the game. And that would be really dicky, and I feel like, you know, of course, if the whole group's doing that, they're probably not going to buy a train off him either. Anyway, let me continue since I find out I did not screw up. Look at our rows. First of all, the first player up here, fairly conservative play. Didn't do anything, didn't get, you know, didn't have to swallow, got himself a nice permanent train, maybe swallowed once. Started one of the new companies, but started it cleanly and wisely. He's got good cash on hand and good stock value. Kind of lends to the idea that, hey, if you can't manage that, maybe being an investor and not starting a company if everybody else is going to flood those companies out real quick is actually a great idea. The danger, of course, is if you're an investor, at about this stage in the game, you're going to have to start exposing yourself to the possibility of owning a company you don't want to own. And that's, you know, not a great idea. And if the game does go long, you're going to be down a share from everyone because everyone else has a company. Here's our... he actually came out second to last, or second from the first. Here's our big, exciting guy that I thought might be the paradigm that says, hey, you want to push the trains out in this? No, he's not. Now, part of his loss, a good $60, is these shares that were the ones that got ditched. Had he not lost that, though, he still would have been significantly behind. He's actually in 3rd from last place, which I was not expecting. That extra swallow and crash, it didn't work out well for him. He was making reasonable money with his company. I don't know what he did. Who did the best is the guy who dumped the big money in and didn't have to pay a big price. That big price was coming. If there hadn't been a bankruptcy, he was screwed. But yeah, and it looked pretty clear that he was in the lead in this game. And it's a hard thing to tell, you know. If this guy survives, if things are just a little different, he wasn't all that far off money-wise. But more importantly, he was blocked by his company having sold out. Well, he was blocked because he held too much of it, is what it came down to. But that's hard not to do. So, you know, clearly, if you drop something the size of the Camden and Amboy, and this has something of that, not quite that size, but close in the game, and just take the cash, you're going to be way ahead in a short game. So that railway immediately becomes more interesting and more powerful. But he didn't manage his corporation and train flow as well as maybe he could have. In fact, he was the last guy to buy a company, and maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he wanted to invest that cash. Had he done that, the game still crashes. This guy still needs to buy that diesel. And he doesn't have that exposed extra risk. So again, a little bit towards the, hey, can you keep that investment side of things up? Owning a company could expose you to more risk in this game than it does in, say, an 1830 game would. Other people in placing, well, we got a big gap between the leaders and the rest. So Uwajima, this was a pretty sturdy forward moving. It feels not that different to me from what other people have. I'm beginning to think that it's the miners, the privates, because, and that's not unreasonable, because of the the crash and the early end to the game. Being able to capitalize your privates is a big part of the game. And that need not be as big a deal in a longer play. But is this game predetermined to go to a longer play? No. Or to this kind of short game? No, I don't think so. Because what this guy did obviously did not work terribly well. Having those 3 deuces wasn't, that huge moneymaker. It was a decent moneymaker. It's what gave this guy enough money to come in second at least, Whereas, and that is his big bonus, is he was riding this without having to, when it was flush and making good cash. And this had a crash with no train. I think he had to sell off a certificate, if I'm correct. Maybe not. Somebody had to. Maybe it was this guy here. Anyway, if the game is going to be short, things could be different. But I'm not convinced that this is always going to push the trains out so fast. The thing is, techniques like 3-2 trains that actually work in 1830 fairly well. There's no guarantees anywhere. But something like that can work to your advantage. It looks dangerous as hell here. Yeah, it's great to ride on somebody who's doing that, but it seems a little bit more dangerous than in 1830. Maybe I'm just not familiar enough with how the trains fall out. Maybe there are ways of doing it, but it seems like you actually don't want to push the trains as hard in this as you do in 30, and I sort of approached it with a very a cautious attitude until I got to that guy, and he said, I can buy another train. I can just run this and hit it hard. All right. I guess I'll come back with a review after I clean up.